When it comes to supporting platforms other publishers have abandoned, nobody does it better than Atlus. In 2018, as companies continue to jump from 3DS to Switch, it has provided owners of the handheld with big, bountiful JRPGs, and Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux is no exception. This enhanced port of the Nintendo DS original is ready to steal dozens of hours of your life with an epic journey, and remind you why the Mega 10 series is one of the best in gaming. Set in the unforgiving world of the Schwarzwald, this massive cornucopia of realities is taking over Antarctica, and it's up to you and your crew of various red shirts to go in and stop it. There is a long, wordy introduction to the game as characters are established, but soon enough players are equipped with Demonica suits that will allow them to explore the twisted paths of the different Schwarzwald sectors and stay alive in turn-based battles with the help of demons they recruit along the way. The Shin Megami Tensei series is sometimes being referred to as Pokemon for adults. But in reality, Strange Journey Redux takes a more nihilistic approach to the monster-catching genre. There are 350 demons to confront, converse with, and convince to join your side, but players can only carry up to 18 at a time. These aren't buddies you're supposed to grow fond of.
Okay, buddy.
But rather blocks you take apart and rebuild as you see fit using Demon Fusion. It can be callous, and it's quite grim to have a demon beg to join your crew only for players to then immediately fuse them with another creature from their stock. But that's the way the cards fall when they have a skill as useful as Luster Candy. As this is an enhanced port, the meat and potatoes of Strange Journey are largely the same. In 2010, it returned the series to its first-person dungeon-crawling roots, using many of the lessons learned by developer Landcars, who also makes the Etrian Odyssey series. Players still travel from sector to sector while characters representing the forces of heaven and hell try to persuade them to their side. Its hard sci-fi cum theology lesson of a story meshes well with the backdrop of various locations. From the demon bordello of Sector Buotes, to the They Live-inspired isles of Sector Carina, Strange Journey doesn't pull any punches with its story, and the Earth it represents, one corrupted by greed, pollution, and sin, is perhaps more relevant today than when it first launched. It may lack the more immersive storytelling techniques of the AAA game market, but Strange Journey's text-heavy narrative is a gripping piece of fiction that feeds players a bitter truth of mankind's self-destructive reality. This 3DS port features a bevy of quality of life improvements, such as Japanese voice acting, improved visuals, 3 difficulty levels, new sub-apps, 20 save slots, and the ability to save in the field. There's no auto-scroll feature for the text, something that would be useful in this story-heavy game, and it lacks the map marking features players familiar with Etrian Odyssey might expect to see, but players can now pick and choose which skills transfer over when they fuse demons. There's also new music, new demons, a new spoilerific introduction animation, and new artwork courtesy of the most substantial addition to the game, the Womb of Grief. The Womb is a 7-floored mega dungeon that needs to be completed to unlock the 3 new endings for the game. Central to the dungeon is Demeter, the goddess of harvest who tasks players with retrieving 6 pieces of fruit, and Alex, the new mysterious character who is trying to stop you. If you think Alex and the Womb are effortlessly integrated into the existing narrative, think again. The dungeon and her storyline feel very much like a guide into the existing storyline. Much like the additions made to the enhanced port of Radiant Historia from earlier this year, these new story elements do not coalesce. Alex appears just a couple of times in the original narrative, and her banishment to the Womb highlights some annoying game design choices. Most player interactions with her quickly devolve into combat. She starts out easily overpowering the player, forcing you to flee from every fight, but if you choose to return to the Womb stronger, and it is a completely optional dungeon, you can come back ready to stand your ground. On the 3rd floor of the late November corn maze that is the Womb of Grief, you may end up facing her a dozen times as she blocks your way throughout. These battles provide no experience points, and if you leave the Womb, you'll have to repeat them all. It's an experience that soils a dungeon that isn't that good to begin with. There are new demons to recruit and new missions to accept in the Womb, but prepare to see familiar faces challenge you again and again as you try to figure out the layouts and pathways of the dungeon. Later floors feature puzzles that are easy to mess up, leading to potential hours of repetitive combat situations. Forgettable for most of the trek, the Womb ends on a high note as the final floors make the best use of all the game's dungeon tricks while adding some nifty ideas of its own. The payoff for completing the Womb of Grief isn't felt for a few hours after, depending on where you are in the game when you finish it. But when the fruits of that labor blossom, it does so in a spectacular way. The original Strange Journey had one of the best final boss battles in the series. This new final boss, who can only be accessed by beating the Womb, is just as satisfying. Also hard. Very, very hard. You may not enjoy every step of this new dungeon, but fans of the franchise should get a kick out of what Atlus has in store with the last grand battle. The original Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey is one of the best JRPGs on the Nintendo DS. While the 3DS has its fair share of titles that eclipse it, Redux is still a damn fine and wonderful addition to any hardcore fan's collection. Just don't expect all the new content to be on par with the rest of the game. But for more written reviews and original features, be sure to head on over to Destructoid.com.